Okay, this is the social story I made to go along with my client. I used cardstock for it and I did hand-drawn pictures, and then I wrote the letters on regular notebook paper and cut them in and pasted them because I felt like it gave it a nice kind of playful look to it. Looking at it through the camera, I probably should have went over and colored in the lines a little bit better. And I just used this character because it was something I could kind of keep duplicating. But this is to talk about trying to work on emotional outbursts when he gets frustrated, because the client from my case study would get upset sometimes when he was doing new and challenging things and he would bite himself. So this story would be something to help him try to come up with new ideas to keep him from getting frustrated, or things he can do when he becomes frustrated. Like this says, he likes challenging activities and it's got a puzzle. Then it says sometimes he has a hard time and gets frustrated, and that's where I drew a Rubik's Cube, because we all know how frustrating Rubik's Cubes can be. And I tried to use facial expressions and little things to kind of show a younger kid, give him some facial expression cues and emotional cues from facial expressions. But here, when he gets frustrated, he takes deep breaths and squeezes his squeeze ball. And he's taking deep breaths. And then this one talks about how sometimes he likes to chew gum when he's doing a tough task, because the tactile input of chewing sometimes can help calm. And then this one says sometimes his mom will give Billy a shoulder rubs to help keep from getting frustrated. And really, instead of shoulder rubs, it would just be a little bit of downward pressure, try to get some tactile input and get the calming sensation from him doing something frustrating. So basically, this is the visual support system I came up with for my client in order to help him kind of get dressed without having any anxiety over what he's wearing, because he doesn't like to get dressed or stay dressed. But you would like, I made all these little cards, and this one says t-shirt. I have one here that says pants or shorts, but you could obviously individualize them. And the best things you would want to do would be to maybe get pictures of some of his personal clothes and then make cards out of those. And once you make the cards out of his, then it'll get a bigger sense of familiarity for the client, for him to figure out what he's going to wear. But these are pretty cool because these cubbies just hold clothes. They have 4 compartments on this one. And I just devised a little clip-on way to let him know where his clothes are for the next day. And if you took pictures of the clothes, enough of his clothes, you could lay them all out, and he would know exactly what he was wearing the next day. And that would help with him wanting to get dressed. It would help with him wanting to stay dressed. I think one of the big sensory things I recommended was for him to get a bunch of tagless and seamless clothes that would help with those tactile sensations. Hi, now I'm going to discuss my therapy interventions for my client. The first intervention I have set up for therapy is going to be like a bin or a tub filled with a bunch of smaller marbles. You don't want them too big, but just a little bit to apply some pressure to his hands as he's digging through for this game. And the reason I picked marbles over something like slime or putty or clay, in the client's documentation, the case study, it showed that he really wasn't into messy things, like mud and dirt and things on his hands. He really didn't like the touch of it. So I thought with marbles, that would give him some pressure sensation and some tactile sensation without kind of throwing him off a little bit and making him feel kind of icky. But basically in this game, you'd have a bunch of like little dinosaur fossils, or even the little dinosaurs that look kind of like the little army men, and you would hide them down in this bin with marbles, and then you would have a card to match it, and you would flip the card, and the client would dig down and pull out a dinosaur, and if it matches, then you set the card and the dinosaur to the side, and then you would pick the next one. If it doesn't match, You kind of help him get the dinosaur back down buried in there. And this also will help work on his memory too, because then he can kind of remember where certain dinosaurs are. And then after that, the game will end when he either gets them all or 10 minutes ends. My second intervention, and this is really kind of based on where you're doing it at, but through the case study, it talked about him just learning to ride a bicycle and how he's getting used to that. I thought a good idea would be to take him outside and just kind of let him play on his bicycle, but take some little orange cones, or you could even use like red or blue Solo cups, something along those lines if it's not too windy, and set him up and just kind of set him in a straight line a few feet apart. Have him practice just going back and forth in straight lines a couple times. We'll see in his balance and his riding reactions. And then have him do some where he weaves in and out of the cones, kind of like this, real slow. Once again, kind of looking to see if he's kind of getting a good riding reaction and how he's doing with everything. And then you would progress to more difficult things, like maybe putting the cups or the cones in a square or a triangle and encouraging him to kind of go around. That way he learns how to, when you hit the corner, you can't just turn like that on a bicycle. You have to kind of swing it out. And when you do the bike leans, and that challenges your balance and stuff in your vestibular system. So I figured that would be a really good intervention, something he would like, something that he likes doing maybe, and help it with his vestibular input. Now the last 20 minutes of the session, I have him playing with Lego sets, but with direct supervision from the OTP, where they'd sit there and let him pick out a set, let him actually do it by the directions. And if you've ever seen Lego directions, they're pretty challenging. I mean, they can be pretty confusing sometimes. So with this, you sit there and you talk to him, and you kind of want to gauge his frustration level. And if you see him getting to a point where he's frustrated, you kind of want to divert him a little bit. Maybe have a squeeze ball ready to go. Have him take deep breaths. Kind of talk him through the situation. Come over maybe and put your hands on his shoulders and just kind of give a light little kind of press down, just a little bit of pressure. Just keep encouraging him and see if you can keep him from biting himself. I mean, that's the main point of this part. It's really trying to get that input and let him learn how to process tactile information and frustration and changes in schedule and all that without wanting to bite himself and harm himself.